want to thank you all again for taking time out of your day to sit through this training with us. We really do appreciate it. Those who were able to jump on for either of yesterday's calls, yesterday we were just kind of going over just the overview of the coaching role in general. We didn't really dig into the content at all. And so thank you for doing that. Those who missed that, tomorrow I will make available content from that. I had some trouble on my end hitting the record button, or I hit the record button, but it was then not taking. So we are going to have to do that in a different way to get that information to you, but we will get the information to you nonetheless. It wasn't anything life-changing, so don't feel like you missed out on anything, but we'll get y'all taken care of. And so today we are just going to dive into the curriculum a little bit. We're not going to go super in-depth. We're going to do a little bit of a flyover and hope that we get you all of the information that you need in regards to that. As I said, I was hoping that I could get workbooks to you earlier this week. I got a little bit behind on that, so hoping to get those drafts to you by the end of this week or early next week, so be looking out for that. And so we will go ahead and get started. Just a couple of ground rules. If we lose connection here, I will jump back on as soon as I can. Also, if you have any questions, if you can just please put those into the chat box and we will answer those on the back end of this. And this should take about an hour if we get through everything and if there aren't too many questions. So we'll go ahead and get started. Again, this first slide here, just talking about the training schedule. Those who were on the call yesterday have seen this and knows what it looked like and what we'll be doing. So not really too much to harp on there. Next slide. So the first session on Thursday is going to be, it'll be a general session. This will be at 5 o'clock. So essentially right after your training, we go right into the program. And it'll just be a welcome, and we'll have some introductions there. So I will be using this time to lay down the ground rules for everyone, our entire group, students and coaches and staff. This will be the opportunity for me to kind of lay down the law for the weekend and what will be going on. I will also be using this time to introduce you all as coaches. So hopefully the space will allow us to all bring everyone to one general space, and I will bring you all up and introduce you all. This is why I asked you all for short bios and headshots. And so thank you to those who have done that. Those who haven't, please get those to me as soon as you can. The icebreaker opportunity, it's just going to be an opportunity for us to get the students up and moving and talking to different people. Everyone in the room, so I guess including you coaches as well, will get pieces of paper that have about 15 to 20 characteristic facts, things like that, and it'll just be your jobs. The point of the activity will just be go around the room and find someone who has done that thing. You have them sign off on it, and then you just move on to the next person and work to fill up your sheet in the 10 or 15 minutes that's allotted for that. And so that will be super easy, super low-key, minimal effort on your end as coaches, but just know that you will need to be live for that just because we will be interacting with students during that time, and this is kind of your first introduction to the group for the weekend. Jimmy, if you want to take on from here.
Sure. Hey, this is Jimmy, folks. And by the way, if you have any questions today, I think there's a chat area, right, James, where they can ask questions, and we can hit those as we go or at the end?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So the first session is going to be after dinner, and we're going to try to set the tone for the weekend. I believe this is all mostly juniors and seniors, and we find the majority of these folks are, still trying to figure out what their career is going to be. They're kind of rudderless still at this stage. With unemployment at 3.7% now, most of them are in for a pretty interesting recalibration in the next 12 to 24 months. So, we start focusing at Pivot on pursuing a career and not a job. A lot of these folks get jobs, but to be honest with you, about 40% of them have changed their major, and they're still trying to find out what that dream job or what that passion is. So we try to invert that. Most of the roles they're competing for didn't even exist when these students were in 6th or 7th grade. These are all new careers that are founded on technology for the past decade, and they're all competing for some of the same roles. So we try to invert this more. In this area, we start to look about focusing on opportunities and using those as the springboard to find their passion. And I won't go deep into this today or any of this content. We'll do more of that when we're in our coaching sessions and have workbooks on the Thursday before the event. But as James said, this is more of a flyover. They're going to have about 20 of these career or vector changes in their life, not very similar to, my personal or baby boomer lives. So, we're going to set the tone moving forward here on how to execute. The entire weekend's focus is going to be about execution and outcomes. But we have to kind of first set the table about, how to implement and how to look at this from finding your dream job, your passion, or in their case, taking a lot of incremental steps to pursue it. And we're going to use one of your major investments, which is Clifton Strength Finder, as some of the compasses. Focus on the student's strengths and not just what their major is. So I'm not sure, James, what you have planned for this Clifton Strengths Finder part of their workbook, if you want to comment about that for a second.
Sure. And I'll get into a little bit on the next slide also. But as some of you know, all of our new members are required to take the Clifton Strengths Assessment when they become new members of the organization. And so everyone there should have taken the assessment already. And so what we did is we found 2 Clifton Strengths exercises from an activity book that we thought we can use their knowledge or what they understand of their top 5 strengths to kind of figure out what their why is and why they're going into the field that they are. And so a lot of those, and I'll go into depth more on the next slide, but a lot of it will focus just on values and what's important to them and just things that they are looking for in the ideal workplace, things they need to be happy, and they will do that based off their strengths. So that was very general there. I'll get into it a little bit more on the next slide.
So building upon that, we'll use Clifton Strengths Finder as the foundation, but we're going to quickly move into more of an execution component. To set the foundation, this is kind of a building block approach. It's going to seem kind of remedial, some on the call, but we have to amplify their brand before we can really start to come out of the gate. And so we'll start that process that evening, and we'll start their personal branding and amplifying their personal branding in a few exercises. So I hate to use the word weaponize. We work with a lot of veterans, but we have to start to weaponize their pursuit here. And we do it with basic block and tackle stuff in the beginning. Yeah, we're going to talk about business cards. They're going to be networking. When we go on campus, 1 in 100 students have one, but it's a huge differentiator when we're engaged in the actual interview life cycle. Personal business cards that we use throughout the process. Going through their digital landscape and just looking at their digital blueprint that's out there. And something as subtle as even their phone. When we call them for an interview, their brand's in play. What do we hear? What's on it? To be surprised in these boot camps. And it's actually kind of fun what you find out about the personal brand that these students have. So we're going to set the foundation that night and start moving forward into more personal branding the next day. I think the other thing, too, is, we'll set the tone for what's going to happen in the next 3 days. We treat this as an actual boot camp. So, being on time, not using your cell phones, really engaging for those 3 days. We're going to definitely set that threshold that first evening. Next page, James.
Okay, so from there, the coaching session for that night, I believe last year there wasn't a coaching session on the first evening, but we're going to kind of get into it right away and focus more on that why. And so when you get into that room for that session, number one, this is your opportunity as a coach to lay down the ground rules for your group for the weekend. Like I said, you all will have time to gather with your coaching partner and figure out what those rules will be. But this will be the opportunity for you two to set the rules down for the weekend. Obviously, again, we were talking about Clifton Strengths being a part of this. You do not need to know Clifton Strengths necessarily to help them get through this activity. We just took the activity from a Clifton Strengths workbook, but it doesn't focus heavily on the actual kind of groundwork of it. And so there are two activities that will essentially make up this coaching session. One is called One Key Question, and the also is called a Values Clarification. And in One Key Question, it is essentially you're working to figure out the why, and it focuses on just the reasoning behind Clifton Strengths and how it's built on focusing on maximizing, what you do best. And so in the One Key Question activity, they are going to spend that time figuring out what they do best and why that's what they do best and how they move forward with that. And then when we get to the values clarification activity, it's really them being able to figure out what is important to them and what they need from their workplace. And so those two activities will be the meat of that section. All of the information on how to lead that will be in your coaching guide. So you guys will not have any issues. If you have taken the assessment before, that's a great thing. But if you haven't, you're still going to be totally fine leading this. It doesn't matter one way or the other as far as leading the session, because really it's the responsibility of the students to already have that content in their head and know what their strengths are. Jimmy, did you want to touch on those other touch points there at the bottom?
Yeah, so one of the dividends of having these coaching sessions that support it, it actually galvanizes what we do. So the most fun we had at last year's PDC in Chicago was watching this transformation. And so it is about executing some of this content. We found during the weekend that, they were sitting in the room with each other and they're going through and they're Googling each other. Great exercise just to see what you get, what's out there. Business cards, the thank you cards, we give them the actual links to Vistaprint and other sites. We had students coming up with their proofs or actually having them printed at Staples and bringing them into the weekend and actually having them either a draft or the actual stuff done. The phone recordings, another fun exercise where you can actually pair students up and have them call each other and don't answer the phone. And, it's a chance to actually execute this stuff during or after these sessions. And you'll see this transformation happen by Sunday. So it's not just talking about it. We're going to actually harness some of this information. So, one topic right here in this slide is we're going to have a PDC Sunday summit where we're going to actually have a competition. And your groups, we're going to look for best in class coming from the individual coach groups. So one of them is going to be a business card competition. We will collect them all during the weekend, but we're going to have a competition on Sunday morning, and we're going to showcase the best in that room. And it's a really nice opportunity to put them on a pedestal, but also calibrate the rest of the room on what some of the top Apex candidates are doing. So as a coach, there's a couple of these things we're looking to harvest throughout the weekend. One of them is that business card sample. It doesn't have to be an actual sample. It can just be a screenshot of what they put together. But, we are looking for that kind of execution during the weekend. Okay? Next slide, James.
Before you move on to that, Jimmy, just a heads up for everyone. If you aren't going to be talking or anything, could you please mute your mic? It sounds like some people might be rubbing up against the microphone on their headsets. Go ahead, Jimmy.
So the next session is the morning of Friday morning. And so we start to set the table with competition. We do bring music, we do bring digital scoreboards, we bring themes with Survivor, Shark Tank, Apprentice. So this thing can be fairly immersive when we get going here. We continue on our trail of setting the brand foundation. We have to go into the resume reconstruction. We reconstruct about 98% of them. And then we move into LinkedIn. These are two bedrock pieces that they have to have that table set to compete. And the whole module for an hour is based on those two fundamentals. We will already have poured through all 140 individual resumes. We'll have critiqued them. We'll have pulled all 140 LinkedIn profiles. And we will already have incorporated the best content into the presentation, once again showcasing some of the best students. Nothing negative ever. We only use best in class. And once again, we're going to be looking for the best resumes in your group and the best LinkedIn profiles. Now, we'll already have harvested a lot of them, and we'll already have the top 5 or 10. But I will tell you that there are people in that room who will change their LinkedIn profile, and they will change their resume, and they will be contenders for the best in class in 48 hours. So, as coaches, we want you to have your finger on the pulse of not just the best guy in the room, but there's some people who will become one of the best in the room in 72 hours. And so those are 2 more pieces of content we're looking for Sunday morning. Okay, James? So on Friday, after this next session is a coaching session. Is once again, it's a chance to start to initiate their action plan. There's an action plan built in this book. This is a living and breathing document that they bring home with them. James, you want to touch at all on the action plan component of this?
Sure. So throughout the weekend, essentially kind of each session, you're going over something that you can contribute to those action plans. And I know that we have quite a few of our guys from last year who are on this call. And so ultimately on Sunday, they will finish wrapping up those action plans. And the coaches in each group are kind of the ones who go over them, critique them. This is their parting. This is what they're taking with them as they go, into this professional world, whatever afterwards, and as far as trying to land a position or land an internship. So this action plan is going to be how they move forward leading from this program. And so it's very important that in that final session on Sunday, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, that they are able to, get good advice from your end. And if there is something that looks weird, that you're letting them know, being honest, being straightforward with them, so they can leave with the best possible plan to move forward.
So we had students from last year actually kept these on their desk throughout the year. We had some students who taped some of the content to their wall, and they defaulted to it. One of the dividends we get at Pivot was we get to see these folks for the full year, and we have a lot of interaction with them. As far as in these groups, it's another great opportunity to pair them up. So yeah, exchange resumes, go through them, make some of the edits in real time. I would usually pair them up with different people each coaching sessions, so they're not with the same guy every time, but we're making these changes on the fly. In a perfect world, we've critiqued their resume. I'd like them to fly back on Sunday and have a top 5% resume ready to go, and not just have us marked it up or critiqued it. Same thing for LinkedIn. They can pull up each other's LinkedIn profiles. I will warn you, some don't have one. So it's a wonderful opportunity to establish that and get this part of their personal brand up and running. Okay. I'm good, James.
All right. So then the next general session will be the etiquette lunch. This was something that we did last year. We tried to add some extra to that than what it was last year. Number one, giving them more time for it. So this should be about an hour and a half. It'll basically be, a working lunch, and they will learn how to do the basic things, how to use utensils, recommendations for dress, dining etiquette, navigating place settings, and grooming and appearance tips. But also another aspect of that for this year will be what is, I guess, appropriate etiquette with alcohol when you're in situations like that. What is also appropriate conversation to have in situations like this. And so the company that we'll be working with will have a worksheet that they're going to provide for the students to kind of fill out as they're going along. So not really too much to add in there. You all will be expected to take part in that because it will actually be the lunch for the day also. But that's all that we have for the etiquette lunch. Yes, it is. I just saw a question pop up, and I'll respond to that right now just because I saw that, yes, it will be a different group. This group is from the DFW area. I know that we got some feedback that there was not some weird stuff, but it didn't go exactly the way that they would have wanted to with the group last year. So we will have a new group who will be doing it that is from the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
So this midday general session, we've crushed the building the brand. We've amplified it. And now we see so many students default to online point clicks and apply to 20 jobs on portals competing with 300 to 3,000 candidates. Or they'll go to career fairs and they will stand in the serpentine line to talk to Google for 3 hours. So we need to disrupt this process. How do we unlock that vault? So now we're going to take LinkedIn and we're going to flip it over and we're going to use it as a really forensic networking tool. We want the student to pick their industry, to pick their company, to pick the city, to pick the role. And so we get really forensic and we have to show them how to unleash the network, their personal network, their alum network, their fraternity network, your network. So the hill gets a little steeper here. They're comfortable in branding. This is a little harder. So a module dedicated to, not just targeting and isolating companies, how to unlock the vault, who to get to, but then it becomes how to engage them. What do you say? What do you do? What's your elevator pitch? I just phoned you and you're a hiring manager for Amazon and I have 30 seconds. So a fairly robust module, definitely an uncomfortable module for some people, but we have to take that next step or the second pillar, and we start to target, we start to network, and we start to isolate. And so we teach them how to do that. Next slide, Jim.
There you go.
So here's a coaching session where you're wrapping up an etiquette. Embedded in your workbooks, the student starts to put his blueprint together. So yeah, there's spreadsheets in there, and we start to take their network that's in their head and get it on paper and start to strategize and start to look at who we're going to connect with. We jump on LinkedIn and we start to understand who we have in our network or your alum network, and we start to get very forensic. This is right down to the student level. We will have already built, like last year, a PDC 2018 LinkedIn group. Everyone there will join it. So imagine having 175 people in the room. We harness it and we harvest it. And so you'll have some people with no LinkedIn profile, and they'll leave with a LinkedIn profile with 200 connections within 3 days. You'll have some people with 600-700 that'll hit an 800 or 900 mark before they leave. So once again, a focus on execution. We get really specific here. We want them pulling up their university pages, which many don't even know exist, and they can see their, let me see, I was down at UGA last week, there are 153,000 fellow Bulldogs that they don't even know exist. And so we start to put this in this workbook. That living, breathing workbook becomes their template, and they're building it out at the individual level. And it's another nice chance to practice their elevator speeches, because that's one more thing that we're going to want to look at on Sunday morning. We'll take the top elevator speeches or pitches, which was unbelievably powerful last year. I was really surprised how good some of them were. Next slide. So this next session, it's we're in the red zone. We don't show up with a Brooks Brothers suit on and 3 copies of our resume. We have to, I hate to say the word, weaponize them again. How do you win in the interview process? If you come in second, we fly you home. So, now it's how do you get past that Skype and that first phone filter interview? We are religious about over preparation. So what is that and what do we do? And there'll be a ton there. We get into competitive research in the company, but we show them what we bring and content we bring to the interview. And then, of course, there's tons of questions they're going to get hit with. Traditional questions, behavior questions, we bring them out in the session. And then what do you do after the interview? How do you stay relevant? Are you sitting by the phone waiting for the phone to ring or not ring, or are we doing things proactive to further execute? Another full hour. It's hard to do these in an hour, I'll be honest with you. But it is another pillar about how to win and how to execute in the red zone and get the career and not settle for a job. Next slide.
So the next general session will be the networking event. This will be the last piece on Friday evening. So as far as your coaching with your small group is concerned, it is finished with that previous session. Obviously, we want you all to be present and participate in the networking event. The networking event will take place from, I believe, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Friday evening. We are hoping to bring in a speaker to just, kind of talk for 10 minutes or so, just to you all and the students, just about, their professional experience and how they got to where they are at. We are working to have, I think, 2 to 3 drink tickets available for obviously undergraduates who are of age and you all who are in the room. We also have reached out to a few of the local alumni associations about attending this. I will say that's one piece that we're struggling with a little bit as far as getting outside alum to this program. So if you are in contact with any of the Texas Alumni Associations, and I haven't really spoke to you about it yet, if you could put the word out there, we're doing more things on our end to get a hold of them also, but we really need help driving some alum to that program, to that portion of the program, so they're seeing more people than the coaches that they've been spending the 2 days with at all. Not that that's a bad thing. We love you all, and we're sure that you're doing a great job, but we also want them to be able to meet some different folks in the area, especially this could be an opportunity for folks to potentially land an internship or something like that. So if you have any advice, assistance, or anything that you could provide us as far as getting some more alum to that event, please reach out to me after this. I'd really appreciate that.
This last general session on Saturday is a fun one. Basically, it's a success story. We built these modules because a lot of the students were winning careers and they had discretionary income. So we were getting hammered in the past at Pivot about, what do I do next? So that first, navigating that onboarding experience, that first 60 to 90 days is critical. Continue to reinforce your brand, LinkedIn, resume refreshes, finding mentors. But we were getting calls on how to navigate the offer letter, relocation bonuses, signing bonuses. A lot of these students are getting stock options coming out of the gate and have questions about vesting, high deductible healthcare plans, even what wardrobe to wear to company events now that they're actually in the company. Hardly any of them ever have a budget. And we were getting questions on 401k and diversification. So, kind of a fun post success story module that helps them understand when they have the role, some of the fundamental things they should have when they jumpstart their career. So fun session, and we built it as a byproduct of them getting careers. Next one, James. So the coaching session after that, once again, I think you may have students who are actually in the interview stage. You may have students in your groups who are, interviewing, looking for internships, or pursuing them. A lot of them, not a lot of them, but a chunk of them actually set up actual appointments the following week, the week after, which I was amazed at. So, here's another opportunity to reinforce the interviewing part. I think is the part they're most shy on is the interview process. I would definitely use sample questions in the workbook, use the cheat sheets we build for phone calls, populate them. It's probably one thing that they push off the most is actually engaging and practicing. We can build all that content, we can over prepare for these interviews, but they shy away from actually practicing. If we're going to fail, we want them to fail on Saturday and not fail next Wednesday when they're in front of someone. Next slide.
And so our next session, another repeat from last year, but we'll be having the recruiter panel. We have identified 2 coaches, Mark Barnhart and Adam Miller, who have some recruiting experience and background to take part in that. We'll also be bringing in a career coach from one of the local universities. And then we're also hoping to have one of our staff members a part of that also, who has previous experience in recruiting. We're just waiting to confirm that. If there are any of you who have had some recruiting experience that would like to take part in that, we would be more than happy to take you on if you're interested. So just reach out to me after that. But how that's going to be set up, there will be some pre-scripted questions for the panelists. And this is really just an opportunity for the students to ask questions about the recruiting process and HR and how that works, and what they're looking for and what they aren't looking for, and what it is that's making them overlook resumes and what is popping out to them about resumes. And so this will be an hour for them to really ask all questions they have in regards to recruiting and HR. Then going on to the next session, this is a general session that it's called Taking Care of You and Strategies for Success. And really what we're focusing on here is just self-care. We had the same session last year. This is modified just a little bit differently. Brother Troy Jaster has volunteered to kind of lead this session. So he's one of our fellow coaches, and he will be leading the session. But really it's helping them identify priorities for self-care, figuring out a plan for stress management, being able to share, and I think we're hoping that there's space for not just Troy, but other coaches to maybe share some of their thoughts, experience with what they've gone through as far as their personal life and family life, and trying to balance the work and life. And so that general session will cover that information. Following that, there will be a coaching session where you'll kind of go back into your room, and there'll be a lot of reflection time during the session. This is an opportunity for hopefully the relationships that have been built over the previous few days will allow some of these students to kind of be vulnerable and talk about things that they may be concerned about as far as balancing what they have at work with their personal life. And if you as coaches have anything that you contribute to that, also, this is a great time for you to do that. This is going to be if it goes the way that we would like it to, this could be a very kind of powerful and vulnerable time, maybe not only for the students, but you as well as coaches. And so the back end of this, you want to take time to, what are some commitments going to be that these students will make to make sure they have that true work-life balance and things work out for them moving forward. Then the first session of Sunday is just finalizing the action plans. As Jimmy and I spoke about earlier, they will be working on these action plans throughout the weekend, so they should be filling things out leading up to it. Sunday should not be the first time that they are putting things into their action plan or thinking about what's going to go into that. And so, how that's going to work is they will have time to pair off with another person, and they will kind of critique each other's. And then you, as the coach, will spend some time calling each person up while they're working in their groups and kind of giving your thoughts and your insight over that and critiquing that. Our staff and the pivot folks will be floating around into each room, seeing what's going on, being able to provide insight to that. But there'll be more instructions directly for what you're supposed to do in regards to that in your coach's workbook.
So the last session is the ultimate PDC. This is a fun throwdown. If you see what's on here, we're looking for the best in class resumes from your group, the best business cards, the best LinkedIn profiles. We probably won't have time for target companies, but we will have time for elevator pitches if we can get these done. We will probably pick 3 to 5 students to come up for each one of these, and they will showcase, and we'll pick the winner from a team of judges we have there. So this is a chance to have some of the best folks up. We'll definitely need your stuff sent to us throughout the weekend incrementally, because we have to prepare this on Saturday and refine this and actually get this built into actual slides for Sunday morning. So, we will have some of these already built out from even before we arrive at PDC. But once again, I don't want to have someone who's really put the time in at PDC and not have them be reinforced or recognized as one of the top. So it's fun. I was amazed at some of the candidates who stood up in front of their peers of 150 last year, and there were some really powerful stories. So it's a real nice chance to recognize and reinforce and showcase and calibrate people all at the same time. Next slide.
And so this last piece will kind of be a combination, I guess, of us and Jimmy. What we are going to do is we will have the assessment for the program or the survey essentially sent out to the students probably at about 10:30 Sunday morning. We'll have that set up so it automatically goes to all of them, and they can fill out their assessment there in real time or shortly after they finish. But we'll cover the assessment during that part. And then, Jimmy, I don't know if you want to talk about, we're going to let you kind of wrap that session up on Sunday. I don't know if you want to talk about some of the points you planned on hitting during that.
Yeah, in construction, but we're just going to reinforce it. I mean, we have to, we're really focusing on what happens afterwards. Once again, this invested an entire weekend. And they, this is a commitment. These folks probably gave up some awesome Halloween parties and things they could have done back at home. So it's a chance to thank them, but it's also, making sure that there's an outcome. Last year, there was 123 attendees, 107 rocked an internship or a career. Those numbers are astronomical compared to when we just deploy and do a boot camp for a major presentation and leave the next day or same day. So, you built something special here, but at Pivot, I just don't want them to go home with a dusty workbook. We want them to have an actual outcome from this event, and it's a really powerful marketing mechanism for the fraternity afterwards as well. You get to capture all that, all those outcomes. So we're packaging it right now for the last, to punctuate it.
All right, and that's all that we have content-wise. Like we said, this was just going to be kind of a brief flyover to give you an idea of what's coming, and what things will look like. I know that there were a few questions that popped up in the chat bubble because I happened to be looking at them. I answered them right away. Is there anyone that has any questions that Jimmy and I could try to answer for you at the moment right now? Easy enough. If you do, obviously you know that I am available for you to reach out to me. Jimmy, I didn't know was there anything that you'd like to finish with as we get ready to part from here?
I just look forward to seeing everyone on Thursday. We
Mark
will
Davis,
have.
I have one question.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, this all makes sense, but do you have any tips on the diversity of the kids that are going to be there? I mean, clearly somebody who's interested in marketing or social media is very different than an engineer, different than pre-med, So each approach, each internship, each business card should really be tailored to their unique industry. And I just wanted your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so two things. James, there's two parts here to me. One is how you partner these students and who you're putting them with from as far as coach's perspective. So I think that's one of the litmus tests that helps answer this question, saying, how do you compartmentalizing that for different majors, right?
Sure. So from my end, personally, I will say this first. I don't think that I don't think it will differ that much. It might differ how the guys think, but as far as what they're supposed to put forward, I don't think it's that different. However, the students are divided up into groups that are their exact major or something closely related. And so then as far as the coach division is made up, at least one of the coaches in each of these groups shares a common career field with a majority of the students. We let the makeup of the majors of the students kind of drive what that is. So they will all be in groups that are similar to each other. Now I'll let Jimmy answer the other part of that question.
Yeah, and it's a really good question. So we're agnostic to major, but I will say there's parts that we present that reinforce that comment where a engineer may be different from a marketing person. And you're a good example. Some of our marketing students have several resumes. Some are highly graphic and are something that won't even get through an applicant tracking system. While their other resume is tailored, more traditional. This week, I'm trying to think, the last 48 hours, I'm on the phone with cybersecurity, forestry, anthropology, psychology, and someone from in LA who's an actor. And so vastly different. So I would say a lot of the content is agnostic and will apply to most of the students, but there are some of those aberrations, and we'll talk about those in some of these segments on how you need to customize and things you can do to stand out that the traditional student either doesn't have to do or isn't doing. So it's a great topic, and we will bring some of that content.
Thank you for that question, Mark. That was a good question. Does anyone else have a question that we could answer while we're all here together? Okay, I will take that as we are in the clear as far as that's concerned. As I said, thank you all again for taking time out of your days. I know that you all are busy and have things to do. Again, I can't thank you enough for volunteering to be a part of this program. I can just tell through emails and communication with you all that you're excited about being a part of this and doing this, and so we are extremely glad to have you, and we hope that with this session and the training that we do on site that we put you in the right position to succeed. So if that is all, I want to thank you all again. Have a great rest of your days. If you all missed the sessions from yesterday or know someone who's missing today, expect to get content pushed out to you tomorrow that will kind of follow up and outline the information that we went over the past 2 days. But thank you all, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.